life is good, eternal life is better. All around me, your creation brings me to my knees in adoration. Beauty here cannot compare to what I'll see when I first see you. Life is good, eternal life is better. Life is good, eternal life is better. Life is good, eternal life is better.
Hey, welcome to The Road. I have a great show lined up for you today. My guest today is Joel Rosenberg. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's got 17 novels, 5 fiction books, 5 million copies in print. He's also the founder and editor-in-chief of 2 news analysis. Joel cites, that is, All Israel and All Arab News. His novel, The Libyan Diversion, is releasing now. Joel is a guy who has written some books that have come true. He doesn't call himself a prophet, but he studies prophecy and he studies what's going on in the world, and he writes what could happen, and amazingly, a lot of what he writes comes to fruition. Let's hope that this most recent novel that he has written will not come to fruition. So listen in to my interview with Joel Rosenberg here on The Road. Joel Rosenberg is with me. His newest book is The Libyan Diversion. Joel, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Eric. Great to be back on the show.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're here as well. Joel, you write fact-based fiction. Why that genre, and what is that process like for you?
Well, it's funny. My main objective as a novelist is to entertain, right? Because people don't pick up a novel for $28 and decide to sit down and read something that is completely untrue unless it fascinates them and engages them and gets their heart racing, and they're up till 4, 5, 6 in the morning and thinking, and then emailing me or texting or tweeting me with curses. How dare you? I got to get up for work, for school, for the kids, whatever, So that's my number one objective. But just my nature and sort of how I got into novel writing anyway, from a background of working for Prime Minister Netanyahu and other U.S. and Israeli leaders, I don't want to just entertain. I want to educate. I want to warn. I basically want to study what America and Israel's enemies say they want to do, and then believe them, and write a worst-case scenario. What if they actually tried to accomplish what they say they're going to? How bad could that get? And the Libyan Diversion is just the most recent version. But as you know, because we've talked about it, you go back to my first novel, which was The Last Jihad, which I wrote 9 months before 9/11. That was about radical Islamist terrorists hijacking a jet plane and flying it into an American city. I wasn't predicting that. I was saying that's what this group of people, this is what the world want. That's what they want to do. What if they did it? And after 9/11, which was so horrific, but you heard everybody in Washington saying, "Well, no one could have ever imagined." Well, we could have imagined. The question is, I'm not the president. I'm not the CIA director. I'm not Homeland Security director. I can't actually stop these things, but I can warn about things that could happen that maybe Washington is oblivious to. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Libyan Diversion and all the other work I'm doing.
Well, Joel, it's amazing because I have been a fan of John Paul Jackson. I don't know if he was on your radar at all or not. He passed away a few years ago. He was part of the Kansas City guys there, and he, probably a dozen years ago, had some visions of what he saw coming to America, some of which have become amazingly true. But one of the things that he prophesied that he saw coming were dirty bombs in cities in America. And so your story, The Libyan Diversion, is a story of an international terrorist organization secretly funded by Russia, Iran, and Turkey, plotting a series of catastrophic attacks inside the U.S. using nuclear dirty bombs. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a vision about it. I just looked at what are our enemies in the Middle East? What are they saying they want to do? And since 9/11, we're now 21, 22 years past 9/11, the U.S., at a lot of expense and a lot of hard work, and bipartisan effort has plugged a lot of holes. You can't get on a plane right now without ID, without a passport, without having your self checked, your luggage checked. You can't take a cruise ship without the same thing happening, or even drive a car or truck into the United States. But apparently you can just walk in.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what you have on you because nobody's checking you. And this is, I'm not trying to be a partisan, Eric. I'm trying to be a patriot. And I got to tell you, I am more worried about U.S. national security right now with the invasion of 5.5 million. 5.5 million people have entered the United States
crazy.
Just since President Biden took over through Mexico, and he's not doing almost anything about it. I'm more worried about American national security right now than Israeli national security, and that's saying something, right? We've got people in this part of the world that, I'm talking to you from Jerusalem. They want to wipe us off the map, literally, with nuclear weapons. So, but at the moment, I am much more worried because I see President Biden. Look, after 9/11, everybody said, well, how, okay, I'm talking about it being a novelist, but everybody said, well, how do we make sure that never happens again? Like that you can't get into the cockpit of a plane, and you can't, bring a box cutter onto the plane, and you can't, be on the U.S. terror watch list and just walk onto a plane, right? That makes sense, right? We all agreed, bipartisan, you got to plug those holes. But what's happening now is President Biden and most of his team absolutely does not care that 5.5 million people came into the United States in the last 2.5 years illegally, and we have no idea who they are. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for legal immigration. That's how my Orthodox Jewish parents, great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents got into the country. They, filled out the paperwork. They stood in line.
Right.
They did it the right way, and I'm very, very grateful. But that's not what we have here. And so I'm not saying most of the people, the 5.5 million, mean American people harm. I don't mean that at all. But already 98 people on the U.S. terror watch list have been apprehended in the last 2.5 years on the U.S.-Mexican border. Now, the question is, out of 5.5 million people, who on the watch list did we not see, did we not catch, and what are they plotting? And the thing is, Eric, and that's what really goes to the heart of this political thriller that's just coming out, the Libyan diversion, no one will be able to say after the horrific attacks happen, if they happen, God forbid, we didn't know that was possible. Like everybody but President Biden seems to know you can't just let an invasion of your country happen because people who mean us harm are coming in, not just people who say, I want a new life, I want to work hard, I want to build a future, I want to invent a new company, a new product. For those people, yes, God bless them, come if we have the space and the time. But
Joel, do you think
dangerous?
Do you think that you would kind of paint Biden in a kind of a naive picture there? Do you think it's naive, or has this been a plot or a plan all along to flood the country with the whole eliminate the borders one world idea?
Well, I don't think you have to be a conspiracy theorist on this one. I think a man that isn't sure what a man is and what a woman is may have some other blind spots. You've got a situation in which President Biden sees himself as an expert in foreign policy, right? He chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and stuff, and he's been around forever, right? He became a senator in 1972.
Right.
So he thinks that he knows what he's doing. The problem is he's incompetent.
Right.
When you take incompetence and you match it with hubris, this is a very dangerous cocktail. And when you look at Afghanistan, that was his first major foreign policy disaster. Everybody in both parties told the president, don't pull the Jenga stick out of the game in Afghanistan. If you pull all U.S. forces out, the Afghan government will collapse, and the Taliban will take over on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. That's your plan? And he said, it'll never happen. He went on television and promised us it would never happen. And then it happened, like we all knew that it would. That was the first signal, not just to the American people, but to China, to Russia, to everybody else. Look what Putin did. He decided, well, look, if Biden doesn't get how to handle the Taliban, then he's not going to stop me from seizing Ukraine. Now, to Biden's partial credit, he didn't believe Putin was really going to invade Ukraine, but he did eventually respond and start flowing weapons in. But he's not flowing in enough to win. He's only flowing in enough for the Ukrainians not to lose. That's not leadership. That's not helpful. And
Joel, you've written that you think, and I read that you thought that Russia might lose that war. Is that the case?
Well, I hope so. But I actually had written, my first novel in this series, that the Libyan diversion is the most recent. The first was called The Kremlin Conspiracy, about a Russian president trying to decide whether to invade Ukraine or the three Baltic states that are in NATO, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And somebody in his inner circle gets so terrified that the Russian president's going to lead to a nuclear war that he plots an assassination of the president. Now, but we're in a situation where Vladimir Putin is I would say he's the most dangerous man on the planet right now. But there are others. The Iranians are looking at Biden's weakness, and they're thinking, maybe we should just break out and go get nuclear weapons like this year, because we only have a 2-year window, and then he might be gone. And the Chinese are doing the same thing. You think Xi Jinping in Beijing is not thinking, look, I got a 2-year window to go grab Taiwan. What's Biden going to do? And this is what scares me. I think, Eric, we are heading in to the most dangerous 2 years in, post-Cuban Missile Crisis America. Like, this is the most dangerous moment, because our enemies smell blood in the water. Biden is not up to it, but he thinks he is. The Democratic Party doesn't even want to change him. They don't want to. They don't. Nobody serious is really taking him on. So the question is, can we hang on? Can we defeat him and get somebody better, or are we locked in for another 4 years? And the Libyan diversion will suddenly seem quaint and not that interesting if what's in the Libyan diversion actually comes to pass. I pray that it does not.
Joel, let's talk about how this all ties into prophecy. We know that one day Russia and an alliance of mostly Muslim countries will attack Israel. Do you think this is the beginning seeds of at least those political alliances?
Well, it's interesting. You're referring to Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, what Bible scholars call the war of Gog and Magog. When the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel wrote that, living in exile in Babylon 2,500 years ago, there was no such country called Russia, and then even when Russia emerged, there has never been a Russian-Iranian alliance in 2,500 years. It just doesn't. That's why many people, even Christians, think, "Wow, that's not legit. It's not real. You're misreading it." But what's happening right in front of us is that you actually are seeing a Russian-Iranian political, economic, and military alliance for the first time in all of human history. It is deeply consistent with the biblical prophecies, and there are other pieces on the chessboard that seem to be aligning. Now, I'm not saying, and I would caution people not to draw a fast conclusion, that we're going to see Ezekiel 38 and 39 play out soon. Some people have said that when Russia invaded Ukraine, my dear friend, I really do, I love him as a friend and known him for 20-some years, Pat Robertson, he did go on to the 700 Club, came out of retirement to say this is the beginning. Now, he could be right, but there's no evidence yet that this is that the invasion of Ukraine is going to lead to the invasion of Israel. More importantly, but it's an open question, is if Putin loses or is humiliated in Ukraine, which he's right on the edge of doing right now, then it's hard to imagine that he is the Gog figure that is, after evacuating out of Ukraine with his tail between his legs, is now going to come after Israel and having the Russian military, emasculated. But if Putin uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, not only to win, but to freak everybody out, well, then I would say we need to be on standby because Ukraine is not his only ambition, okay? And he's shocked. I mean, he's shocked that his military is performing so badly when he was told by his generals that this was going to take a few weeks.
Wow.
And now it's taken over a year.
Wow.
And I just interviewed for All Israel News, our daily news and analysis site here in Israel. I interviewed Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the top Republican foreign policy experts, and he told me he actually believes now that there is a very significant danger that Putin will go nuclear in Ukraine. He's not predicting it, but he's saying, look, the situation is so bad for Putin that this really could happen. And he said that Biden and all of Washington has to send a signal. If you use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, that's war on NATO. Why? Not because Ukraine has a treaty with the United States or NATO, but because the nuclear fallout, the winds are going to blow deadly radioactive toxins into NATO countries. And we've got his point, Senator Graham's point was, you have to create deterrence right now. You don't want to be in a situation where you're reacting after a mushroom cloud. You need to be drawing lines that are clear and convincing today. And again, that's a whole different novel. That's the Kremlin conspiracy novel. But anyway, that's what I'm doing with my life, Eric. For better, for worse, I'm writing
that's awesome,
what I hope are entertaining political thrillers, love stories, but also twists and turns. But basically looking at what if the worst actors in the world actually started to do what they say they want to do? What would that look like? What if we believe them that they're not just yapping, but they actually intend to bring this level of harm? Let's imagine that, because it's better to imagine it now before it happens than to have to react after it happens.
If you just happen to be tuning in, I'm here with Joel Rosenberg. He is the author of The Libyan Diversion. He's a best-selling author, 17 novels, and 5 nonfiction books. Joel, there has been some talk for quite a few years that Israel may do a preemptive strike on Iran because of its building of nuclear bombs. Anything, and I know you are in Jerusalem at this time right now, anything happening on that front, any rumors going on in Israel that you can put your finger on?
Yes. Prime Minister Netanyahu's former chief national security advisor has been in the media here over the last few weeks saying it's time to make some decisions.
Wow.
That he said that basically said that Israel has to be ready to attack Iran's nuclear facilities alone. There's no way we can count on the Biden administration to do it for us, and of course that's not our doctrine to ask another country to do it. We believe in defending ourselves by ourselves, but it's a lot easier for the Biden administration to, that probably is a several-week war, maybe several months, but it's easier for the United States because it has so much more. It's a superpower, and we're a little power. I'm not saying we're not scrappy, but we're 10 million people, and the United States is 330 million, and you guys have aircraft carriers, and we don't. And so, but there's no evidence that at the moment that President Biden has his eye on the ball of Iran, right? The last 2 years, Biden has been begging, pleading, humiliating himself and the country, trying to get Iran to enter the failed agreement that Biden and Obama made last time, which was, let's give $150 billion to the world's worst terrorists and hope that they don't do anything bad with it.
Or spend it on building nuclear bombs, right?
If I was writing a novel, Eric, about a president like this, nobody would buy it because you say, okay, Joel, I know it's fiction, but it has to be plausible. Nobody's going to just give the Iranian regime $150 billion and have no inspectors and just believe them that they're going to stop
pallets
trying to
of
build
money,
nuclear
pallets of
weapons.
money,
It's
Joel.
never going to happen. Why are you talking about this? And yet, that is literally what's happened.
Well,
But
Joel,
but Biden is so weak that the Iranians aren't even taking the deal. So
Right.
that shows us
wow.
just how much danger we're in. But I'll wrap up with this, Eric. I'm more worried right now, as you and I talk, about American national security because of this invasion of 5.5 million people. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they brought into the country. We don't know what they're plotting. Not all 5.5 million. It only took 19 hijackers on 9/11 to change America forever. And I'm more worried about America right now than I am about Israel. And I think that says something.
Yeah. Joel, we have about 3 or 4 minutes left here. The Abraham Accords that Donald Trump put into place, President Trump put into place. Talk about what you see now that we are a year or so into those.
The Abraham Accords were not only historic and amazing and fantastic, and I've told President Trump to his face how grateful and encouraged I am. Like, I was not always sure that Trump, knew what he was going to be doing if he became president, and yet he really surprised me by getting so many good things done, and those were 4 more, in addition to the Supreme Court justices and the tax cuts and rebuilding the military and so forth. So again, I'm not trying to be a partisan. I really am not. I'm trying to be a patriot. But but your question leads me back to Biden. Trump got 4 done, and he had never done this at all ever. Biden has been doing this for 50 years, and he can't get another one. Like, there's at least a half dozen more Arab-Israeli peace treaties to be had, and I think the main one right now that I've been reporting on at All Israel News and watching closely, because I've been to Saudi Arabia and I've met with the Crown Prince for more than 4 hours. One of the only Israelis that have ever done it. One of the few people in the world. But I'm telling you, I believe that a deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize, to make peace, is right in the offing right now.
Wow.
And Biden is not doing enough. I'd like to see him change. And again, Senator Lindsey Graham was telling me that he is trying to be an intermediary between the Saudis, the Israelis, and Biden. I say more power to him. But right now, Biden is he's not stepping up and showing. I mean, this is a deal ready to be had right now, and it would be huge for American and Israeli national security and prosperity in the Middle East, and to build an alliance, a real alliance, against the Iranian theocratic regime. I also interviewed the Iranian Crown Prince recently, who came to Israel, the son of the former Shah. Like, he's the leader of the pro-freedom, pro-democracy movement around the world, trying to overthrow the Iranian regime. It was fascinating. We don't have time to get into it, but to sit with him, and I interviewed him for my primetime show on TBN, the most watched Christian TV network in the United States, RosenbergReport.tv, if you want to find past episodes, and that was just 2 weeks ago.
Joel, there are a lot of Jews in America who are very liberal, who have always voted Democrat. Do you think that, since you're in Israel, do you think that there could be a change coming amongst the Jewish community to start maybe becoming a little more conservative, considering what Donald Trump did and of course, the Obama and Biden's treatment of the Jewish communities?
I don't see a sort of an awakening or a revival inside the Jewish community, inside the United States, to move towards a more conservative understanding of public policy. But I do see, writ large. But are there Jewish people moving? Absolutely. There's a significant, steady stream. You just don't see it in large numbers. But we're now at about 30% of the Jewish community that is voting Republican, conservative, in most elections. That's up from like 0.
Right. That's a huge jump. It is.
So 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So I think that is movement. But I will tell you, evangelical Christians are much more passionate about standing with Israel right now than American Jews.
Yep.
I'm not saying that all American Jews don't love Israel. I'm saying when you drift away from the Bible, when the Bible is not your compass, it's not your North Star, as it's not for most American Jews, then why are you for Israel? Like, you don't plan to come here. You don't plan to
Right.
become a citizen here, and you sort of are listening to your values are becoming increasingly liberal because they're not tied to biblical Judeo-Christian truths. So, and you start getting fogged by the media and academia and, AOC and Rashida Tlaib, who say that Israel is horrible and that actually the Palestinians are wonderful. The Palestinians are wonderful as a people, but their leadership stinks and is treating them terribly. And this is the problem. Many American Jews have become, sadly to say it, ashamed of Israel. And whereas American evangelicals are like, look, we're not saying Israel's doing everything right, but God has a plan. He's rebuilt Israel out of dust, out of ashes. We're watching the prophecies of Ezekiel 36 and 37 come true, the valley of the dry bones. We're at the 75th anniversary of the prophetic, miraculous rebirth of the state of Israel. And evangelicals are excited. American Jews, not so much. That tells you something, and it's something sad.
Well, Joel, that's a wonderful interview today and a great message there. Tell people how to get your book.
Sure. Well, you can find the Libyan Diversion in hardcover, e-book format, or audio at any bookstore that you love, Barnes & Noble online, as well as in stores, Amazon online. You can certainly go to joelrosenberg.com, and you can click on the Libyan Diversion, and it's got a whole list of all your favorite bookstores that you can just, go through that way if you want. But, yeah, I hope people will buy it, enjoy it. You don't have to have read the first four to read this one. You can read it as a standalone, but if you love it, then go back to the Kremlin conspiracy and start from the beginning and meet Marcus Riker, the former Marine, former U.S. Secret Service agent who becomes a CIA operative sort of against his will. You'll enjoy it more when you dial back and go through the series, but you can start with the Libyan Diversion if you've never heard of them. Or a lot of guys tell me, Joel, I love your work, but I don't have time. And I say, get the audiobook on your phone.
There you go.
And when you're driving, when you're shaving, when your wife asks you to go get some milk, say yes. It's good for your marriage. You can listen to the novel for another 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. So I love audiobooks.
Joel, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Eric. Great to be with you.
My thanks to Joel Rosenberg for being on the show. The book, once again, is The Libyan Diversion. Joel is a New York Times bestselling author, and he worked for Benjamin Netanyahu for a while. And so he's got his finger on the pulse of what's going on there, and he is a dual citizen of Israel and of America. For a lot of evangelicals, and it's true for me, Israel, and I'm always inquisitive and always have try to have my finger on the pulse on what's going on in Israel. It's because it's really the linchpin of what's happening in the world and what's happening in the end times in prophecy. The Bible prophesied that Israel would be born in the day it was Israel was sacked in AD 70 by the Romans and didn't come back again until 1948. And the Bible prophesied that it would come back and talked about all the things concerning around Israel in the end days, and then what would be happening in the world as well. But Israel is the key to everything that's going to be happening here in the future. And if you listen to my show regularly, you know that I am a fan of prophecy, and that what happens in Israel will begin to show us what will happen around the rest of the world. And Israel is an important part of that. And when Jesus comes back, establishes his 1,000-year reign on this planet, he will come back and set up his reign in Jerusalem, in Israel. And that's what's going to happen. At least that's how I believe things are going to shake out here in the future. Hey, you've been listening to The Road. I'm your host, Eric Bombeck. I'm running out of time. You know what I always say? It's time for me to hit the road.